Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to RobMotive. So let's talk about new Toyota Tacoma fear and anxiety. You know, it was running rampant when this truck first came out. I remember all of it was just hate for this new truck. And I really couldn't figure it out because you see, I went and I drove one and I thought, wow, that's a pretty nice truck. You know, it's got great power, great acceleration. It's comfortable, it's quieter, it rides better. I mean, what's the downside of this truck? It has the 4-cylinder turbo. And that was probably early on the biggest complaint that I heard out there. And people were really afraid of it. They were afraid that, I guess it was going to blow up 2 days after you bought the truck, right? Didn't stop me. I picked up one. I had a 2024 TRD Sport. Awesome truck. Never had any issues with it. Now, speaking of issues, maybe the fear and anxiety about the truck was warranted a little bit in the beginning, right? There were a few things. The first thing that I remember, one of the first things, were the shutters freezing in the front. If you're not aware, there are shutters that open and close behind your grill. They're attached to the grill. One of the things that make changing the grill out of this truck a little more complicated, right? But anyway, someone had, a couple of people maybe, there weren't many, they had those shutters freeze up, and it's because of the hardware. The hardware rusted, the nuts, the bolts, the screws, and they wouldn't allow the shutters to operate. So of course they got a message. It was very, very few, and Toyota must have remedied it because it never really went beyond that handful of trucks, I guess. There was never a TSB, certainly never a recall, anything like that. Of course, everybody who follows the new Tacoma probably was familiar with the problem that the TFL guys had. They took the truck out and they were shifting and running it on ice and everything else in four-wheel drive, and they had a failure, a pretty big failure. A part in the driveline broke. That part is designed to break so that if there's too much pressure or torque on the driveline, that part breaks and doesn't cause the rest of your driveline to be destroyed, right? So it worked the way that it's supposed to, but I think it probably worked too well. In other words, it might not have been robust enough to take a little bit more pressure. Who knows? I wasn't there. I don't know what they did for their test and whether what they were doing was beyond normal, maybe beyond the parameters of the truck. Not saying it was their fault, but let's be honest. They were looking for a problem and they found one. And you usually can find what you're looking for, right? Next up, let's talk about the transmission. Currently, there is a little bit of an issue potentially with the first maybe 1,000, 2,000 Tacomas that were built. So going back to 2024, apparently there's a possibility that in the manufacturing of the transmissions, there was some gunk or stuff left inside that could cause a problem. Could cause a problem. Now, it's, again, not enough for a complete recall or anything like that. And honestly, I had a truck, the 2024, within the VIN range of the trucks that could possibly have the problem. I never had any issues, although I am aware of some folks that did. Again, it sounds more like a handful. It's very hit or miss. Certainly nothing to be overly concerned or have a lot of anxiety about, particularly if you're currently driving around in a 2024 Tacoma that could have been affected by that problem. Lastly, and this is the most current thing, and this affects me as well, there was or is a recall current for the brake system on the back of trucks that have 17-inch wheels. Apparently, the brake lines can be impacted by anything that might get stuck inside that wheel that could then damage, cut, break, whatever, the brake lines in the rear. Obviously a big problem. You know, everybody wanted to have those disc brakes in the back. Well, we've got them, and now there's a problem on the 17-inch wheels with them. Is it a big deal? You know, I think if you live in an area where you get tons and tons of snow and you get a lot of buildup inside the wheel and it turns to ice, it gets hard. Of course, the tire, the wheel is always spinning. Anything inside that wheel that might impact that brake line, which does, by the way, stick inside the wheel way too far, in my opinion. I did a video on that. I'll try to link it down below. You can find it on the channel where I crawled under the truck and actually looked at what the problem is. So if you really want to know, check that out. Is it a big deal? You know, it's only a big deal if it happens to you, right? It's a possibility for sure. I'm not real concerned about it. Of course, I live in deep South Texas where it's always sunny. It's sunny today. We don't get snow or ice or any of that stuff. The biggest concern I would have is if you're an off-roader and you're getting a lot of mud and rocks and stuff stuck inside your wheel that obviously could damage those brake lines. Otherwise, if you're just driving daily on normal roads and you don't live in an area that's inundated with snow, it's not a problem. I certainly would have it fixed. And by the way, I think the fix is going to be pretty simple. I believe that they're simply going to reroute the brake lines to pull them more inside. And in the end, it's probably going to be a better design than what most other vehicles have out there, because if they're going to fix it, they might as well fix it right. So back to the point here. New Toyota Tacoma, fear and anxiety. Is it warranted? I don't think so. And I think people are finally discovering this. You know, I have this channel and I also have a Facebook group. By the way, if you want to check that out, there is a link down below. Lots of good people in there and it's growing like mad. But the comments that I'm seeing, more and more new owners, lots and lots of new people buying the Tacoma. So it seems to me that maybe those folks that always wait after the first year, you know, the big thing is never buy a first year redesigned vehicle. And there is some merit in that, obviously. But I think those folks may now be getting over their fear of the new truck and actually going ahead and pulling the trigger and picking them up. Now, one last thing I want to mention, you know, these things that I talked about in the beginning, the issues that the new Tacoma has had, let's be honest, every vehicle, whether it's a brand new redesign or a seasoned veteran that's been out there on the road for a while, sooner or later is going to have some sort of a TSB or a recall. It's a machine. Men and people build it. So there's always going to be the potential for problems. There's always going to be parts that could be bad. I don't think it's been anything overly significant. There hasn't been some full model mass recall because of some huge failure with the new Tacoma, the 24s or the 25s. I don't think having any fear or anxiety about buying the new truck is warranted. Leave a comment, let me know. What do you think about this? Were you afraid, or are you still afraid of buying the new Tacoma? I'd be curious to know. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.